Rainbow Reflections, Book 2, Put Out the Fire, Chapter 24, Thunder, Lightning, Sun, and Rain. After Ren had the vision of Sarala, she called Hyaktu back at once. He quickly returned to the tower after signing his transfer of ownership, taking in the details of what she'd seen before he rapidly set off once more. The twins were then left in the tower, both feeling agitated as they wanted to do something to help their father on his search and rescue mission. Zin wanted to join Hyaktu and Jabali, but Ren was set against the idea, claiming that neither of them could do anything more. Soon after, Ren went to her room, saying that she would try another meditation to get more information on the clearing's location. Zin went to their room, hoping to find inspiration there. I wish I could be useful, Zin thought, swaying in the hammock. But I can't do martial arts properly, I definitely can't do magic. I'm just a pathetic joke. Their mind began to wander as they thought of Sarala, Ren, Hyaktu, classes, magic, what type of magic they had, back to classes, elemental magic, their deck of enchanted cards. My cards! Zin exclaimed eagerly, hopping out of the hammock. I'm not useless. Well, not entirely. I know how to use the cards. They hurried over to the desk, which, like the many shelves around the room, contained lots of random objects. Their box of enchanted cards sat in front of a cube and a branch. Zin picked up the box, but the excitement that had shot through them vanished. But I didn't enchant these myself. I don't know how to enchant things. So even if I can use them to help Dad find and rescue Sarala, once the enchantment runs out, they're useless. Unless, what if I somehow enchanted myself to be invisible? If I can enchant myself, then surely I can enchant objects. I have to give this a try. The excitement was back, coursing through their fingers, tapping on the desk like an upbeat song. They were soon bounding around the room, their hands flexing and relaxing as their thoughts continued to race. Zin paused in the middle of the room, catching sight of himself in the reflection of their window. I can do this. I just gotta focus. Zin hurried to one of the shelves and picked up a stick balanced on it. They held it tightly, not entirely sure how to go about enchanting it. I enchant you with fire. Whenever hitting something hard, you will send out a burst of flames from the striking end. Zin could imagine it in their mind's eye. They were slamming the stick against the ground, causing flames to fly from the butt end. They smiled at the thought, deciding to take it a bit further. Whenever I squeeze your top 4 times, you will shoot fire from the other side in the direction I'm pointing you. They took a deep breath, repeating the instructions and singing it over and over in their head. Then Zin slammed the stick against the wooden floor, realizing too late that fire on wood was a bad idea. As the stick made contact, flames appeared. They quickly stomped out the fire, tossing the stick to the side as their excitement turned into fear. That was close, they muttered. They glanced at the stick lying on the ground and grinned widely. I did it! I did it! Zin picked up the stick and moved to the center of the room. Frowning, they went to one of the windows and glanced out to the dim courtyard. Thick clouds drifted slowly by overhead, a silent mist falling from them. They didn't see anyone walking below, but then again, it was still morning and not many students would be wandering around, especially once they learned classes were cancelled for the week. Zin shrugged and opened the window as wide as they could. They then stepped back a few paces, making sure the stick was perfectly lined up with the window. Taking a deep breath, imagining the stick shooting fire in front of them, Zin squeezed the stick 4 times. A blaze sprang from the other side of the stick, directly out the window. Zin nearly dropped the stick in delight. The fire continued for several moments, and they wondered how to stop it when it ended on its own. Oh no, what if it's already out of its enchantments? But they squeezed the stick again, and more fire burst forth. They let out a sigh of relief, waited for the blaze to stop, then set the stick on their hammock. Let's find something else, they muttered to themselves. They walked around their room, looking at the many objects lying about. Their eyes landed on a flute from the country of Zahur, and they picked it up. I wonder... Zin took a deep breath, then muttered, I enchant you to create strong winds when I blow you 3 times. Keep creating wind afterwards with each breath. They imagined wind forming from the end of the flute, circling all around them. Zin grinned and lifted the flute to their lips, then blew into it. They had no idea how to play a flute, and merely expelled as much air as they could. After the 3rd breath left them, wind appeared at the end of the flute. It literally appeared! Zin's 4th breath stopped halfway, causing the wind to die. Did I just do that? They whispered. Did I just make the air appear? But only strong magicians can do that. Ecstatic, Zin lifted the flute to their lips again and blew into it. The wind appeared on their third breath again. They continued to blow into the instrument, wind circling around them in perfect arcs the entire time, like Khurshid's magic. They lifted their robe and danced through their hair until they set the flute down. I can't believe this, they mumbled. Zin looked around for another object, then grabbed a metal cube. This cube had once been enchanted, but all of its enchantments had been used. I enchant you to create water, Zin ordered, wondering if they'd be able to control each of the elements. Water will pour from your side when I squeeze you twice. They squeezed the box twice, but nothing happened. Oh, maybe I can't create the element, Zin realized. I can probably only create the element if I have that magic, like with fire and air. If I actually have either of those magics, that is. They thought for a moment, then tried again. I enchant you to control water when I squeeze you. If I squeeze you once, you will stop water's flow. If I squeeze you twice, you will lift the water. If I squeeze you 3 times, you will make the water fall. Zin hurried from their room and went down to the second floor with the cube in their hand. They soon entered the red-colored bathroom and went to the sink. Turning the water on, they squeezed the box in their hand. To their complete astonishment, the water stopped flowing and hung in the air. Zin turned off the sink, then squeezed the box twice. They watched the water rise, gaping like a child in awe. 3 squeezes later, and the water splashed into the sink. Zin shook their head numbly. They hurried back up the stairs into their room, not bothering to close the door behind them, grabbing a small stone. Khurshid said rocks don't hold enchantments well, but let's try it. The frog oils are enchanted after all. Thinking of the frog oils brought a grin to Zin's face. They grasped the rock in their hand and ordered, "Shift into a frog!" The stone seemed to be carving itself, bits of rock falling away as its form changed in their hand. Soon enough, it appeared like a miniature frog statue. Zin squealed in delight. I enchant you to listen to my commands, Zin said, imagining the frog following them around everywhere. The stone did not do anything. Zin waited for several long moments before realizing they needed to order it to do something in the first place. Go to the family room. The frog came to life. It hopped off Zin's palm and slid to the open door. Its legs weren't moving like the frog oils. Zin hurried after it in awe, watching as it slipped down the stone steps. I can't believe this, they whispered, their eyes wide. I can control all of the elements, with enchantment magic or whatever this is. I can do this. I can do anything. I can help Dad and rescue Sarala and keep the school from being shut down. They shoved the flute and cube in their robe pocket. Then they grabbed a stick and headed down the stairs. They passed the frog statue on the way, ordering the small stone to stop in its tracks. Zin then pocketed the frog as well before continuing down the spiral steps. I have to tell Ren. We can join Dad. Yet as Zin knocked on their sister's door, she did not answer. After waiting a few seconds, they continued down the stairs, figuring that she was deep in a meditation at this point. As they reached the empty family room, they nodded to themselves that this was likely the case. Zin paced the room as they waited for Ren, the excited energy still flowing through them. I wonder where Dad is, if he's found that clearing yet. I hope I can catch up to him. They stopped in their tracks abruptly. I need to catch up to him. I don't have time to see if Ren learned anything. I have to leave now if I want to help. They darted from the tower, exiting through the Tai Chi studio to the courtyard. The lamps glowed like fireflies around the dark courtyard, their light shimmering on the slushy snow. The clouds were growing heavier overhead, the sky turning black. They ran through the mist towards the southern building, trying to ignore their speeding heart and racing thoughts. Within no time, they reached the door to the entrance hall and opened it. They closed it swiftly behind them, the hallway empty. Only one glass door still stood. The one that had been shattered was replaced with a wooden door. Zin headed for the doors and tried to open them, but they were locked. Oh no, I don't have the key! Maybe I can get out another way. Zin therefore turned on the balls of their feet and bounded back down the hall. They turned and entered the admin hall, hurrying to the first room on their right. The storage room was small and crammed, but held a large window that faced the front of the school. Zin entered the room, closing the door quietly behind them. They stepped over large crates and squeezed between shelves, until they came to a stop in front of the window. Zin unlocked it and opened the glass wide. A crisp breeze swirled through their hair, bringing in the scent of damp trees. Zin breathed it in for a moment, allowing it to calm them down. Then they stuck their foot out the window. Before their toes could touch the ground, a loud shrieking sounded in the room. Zin glanced around in bewilderment, hanging halfway between the school and the outside world. The door flew open and a tall figure appeared, shadowy in the dim lighting. Zin dived out the window, not sparing them a second glance. They rolled across the frosty ground and hurried for the forest, not a single thought in their head as they ran like their life depended on it. They had barely made it several meters through the icy forest when they heard a shout behind them. Zin's heartbeat quickened and breath shortened as they continued bolting, their robe flying up behind them, their objects weighing their pockets down.
Zinnivis!
Oh no! Anxiety joined the adrenaline pumping through Zin's body, making them run quicker across the slippery mud and patches of snow.
Zin, come back!
Zin ignored the screams behind them and the thunder now booming overhead. They kept sprinting, willing themselves to go faster and faster until all they could hear was the whoosh in their ears. Their face and body stunned as branches whipped against their skin, but they ignored the biting pain. They ran through a spiderweb and only hoped for a second that the spider was not attached before their focus returned to the task ahead. Eventually, Zin ran out of breath and their legs began to slow. They staggered through some bushes and sunk to their knees, gasping for air. I'm so stupid! Why didn't I think of all the enchantments? I bet that's Khurshid who came after me, and he's just gonna take me back. Zin groaned. I should have planned this out, been prepared. Dad's right. I act impulsively. Zin tried to take slower breaths, but the panic was still coursing through them, making the task difficult. They sat up and glanced around, taking note that they were in a small clearing. It was quite dark now, the clouds overhead ready to release snow or rain, the trees providing plenty of shadows. Zin peered more closely at the blackness, tilting their head as they tried to make out a particularly upright figure. Is that a person? Oh no. Is it Mimeta? Zin got to their feet at once, pulling their fire-enchanted stick from the deep inner pocket of their robe. They held it in front of them, sweat sliding down their arms as their body tensed.
Zinnivis!
Zin ignored the call, though it sounded quite close by. They kept their eyes on the figure in front of them, though the person, or whatever it was, did not move. They could now detect footsteps slapping across snow and mud until a tall person staggered into the clearing. He nearly slipped and tumbled into Zin, but quickly regained his footing with a swift wave of his hand, the air seeming to catch his fall. Khurshid, Zin mumbled. Great, I'm not going to be able to join Dad.
Zinnivis, get back to the school!
Khurshid ordered, his voice harsh.
No!
That's not to happen, no! The figure in the bushes growled, stirring at last. Zin's heartbeat quickened and it almost felt like they were running again. They took several steps back, not even realizing they were moving. Khurshid took a step forward and threw his arms out on either side of him, blocking the figure from Zin's sight and acting as a shield.
Get back to the school!
Khurshid ordered again. But...
Get out of here!
Zin didn't move, their body frozen to the spot. The figure in the bushes stepped out, snapping twigs along the way. It was a woman in a red dress. Mimeta? They wondered aloud.
Zin, go, now!
Mimeta suddenly lunged at Khurshid, her teeth bared and a red glint in her eyes. Zin let out a yelp of fear and stumbled backwards, their whole body trembling. I have to help, but what do I... Khurshid thrust both of his palms towards Zin, leaving himself vulnerable to Mimeta's attack. Before Zin knew what was happening, a strong gust of wind slammed into them and carried them away through the forest. They crashed into trees and bushes along the way, yelping in pain, but the wind would not let up. Zin flailed helplessly along, objects falling from their pockets. Finally, the wind stopped shoving them and they fell to the ground, only feet away from the front doors of the school. They shook their head dazedly, then felt something hit their head. Zin sprang to their feet in alarm, but it was only a raindrop, followed by many more as the clouds released their water with loud booms. Zin stared up at the flashes of lightning dancing across the dark sky, backing up until they felt the doors behind them.
There!
A shout sounded between thunderclaps. Zin glanced about, then saw two figures running their way, Hyaktu and Jabali. Smiling lightly, Zin made to move forward, but Hyaktu thrust his palm, sending a burst of wind at Zin and knocking them back. Zin stumbled into the doors again, their smile falling into a gaping frown as they struggled to comprehend what was happening. Zinnivis, what on Seder are you doing? Hyaktu growled as he approached, his eyes flashing furiously. Get inside, now! I came to... Did Khurshid leave? Hyaktu interjected, pulling out a key and unlocking the wooden door. Yeah, he... Hyaktu opened the door and shoved Zin inside. Zin fell to the floor, letting out a cry of surprise as they rolled to their side.
Sorry, are you okay?
Hyaktu asked rapidly, his gaze softening as he locked eyes with Zin. Zin gazed up at their father, uncertain why their eyes pricked and a lump had formed in their throat.
Were you hurt out there? What happened?
Hyaktu asked urgently, concern now masking his face. Khurshid threw me back here when Mimita attacked, Zin managed to mumble.
Mimita attacked?
Hyaktu growled sharply.
Stay here!
Zin's eyes widened. But, Dad! Hyaktu ignored them and swiveled around, closing the door without another word. Jabali stared down at Zin through the glass for a moment longer, then trailed after the smaller man. Zin watched helplessly as they both bolted into the storm, their robes billowing behind them. Zin pulled their feet in close and linked their arms around their legs, burying their face in their knees. They began crying like the clouds outside, their sobs shaking their whole body like thunder shaking the buildings. Barely able to breathe between the choking cries, they did not know why they were feeling pained in the first place. Was it because they weren't able to go on the mission? Was it because Hyaktu had shoved them to the floor in anger? Was it because their father had rejected their help, seeing them as a hindrance? I'm so stupid! Why did I ever think I could do this? I'm never gonna be good enough. All I am is a failure. If something happens to any of them, it's my fault. The minutes ticked by. The rain drummed, the thunder rattled, the lightning flashed. Zin kept their eyes on the forest outside, though it was hard to make out through the falling sheets of water and their own blurry vision. Eventually, they saw movement. They sat up straight and wiped the tears from their eyes to see better. A smile formed on their lips as they realized that Hyaktu and Jabali were returning, and Jabali had Sarala in his arms. Zin sprang to their feet and opened the door. Wind and rain lashed at their face, and they had to close their eyes. Once they detected the trio had made it inside, they closed the door again. Is she okay? Zin asked, rushing forward to take a look at Sarala. Zin couldn't tell if she was conscious, as her head was drooped and her eyes were barely open behind her damp hair. Jabali opened his mouth to respond, but Hyaktu was faster.
She hit her head, Hyaktu stated. Get mint for me. We'll be in the healing room.
What about Khurshid? Zin asked. Hyaktu's gaze darkened as he met Zin's eyes, and their hearts sunk. He did not speak as Jabali rapidly headed for the admin hall.
Khurshid has been captured,
he finally uttered. Hot tears slid down Zin's cheeks, and they felt lightheaded. I'm sorry, they choked out, knowing it was their fault. Hyaktu turned away, dipping his head as he trailed after Jabali at a brisk pace.
You've earned your third and final referral, he said tonelessly. You are expelled, Zinivus.
Zin could only gape after their father as their knees crumbled beneath them.